Spoilers ahead for Star Trek Strange New Worlds, but also Star Trek and other Star Trek, as well as Star Trek. So watch out for Star Trek spoilers. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Script Department. Today I'm joined by Brad, and we are going to be talking all things Strange New Worlds episode 4. But before we get into that, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and pop over to the scriptdepartment.net for our global network of screenwriters, for all the stuff we do over there. It's very cool and interesting. But also you can find us on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, all over the place to do interesting things. So come and check us out there. Brad.
Hi.
Hey, man.
Hey.
How's it going?
Yeah, pretty good.
Strange New Worlds episode 4. This one, I loved it. I loved it. It was so great. I watched it like 3 times. It's really exciting. How did you find it?
It was good. After the first 3, I thought they were going to ease off a little bit. We got a lot of action and a lot of space trotting, new species. Like, it was great. And we were like, okay, that was the first 3, the dump of the first 3, and surely it'll get a bit calmer. But it didn't. They sort of cranked it up even further. And I said in the first review, like, I want to see more Gorn, and it was all about the Gorn. And they're pretty terrifying things. I mean,
they are.
And structurally, this episode was a bit like Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, like hiding in the nebula. I know it wasn't a nebula, but it was in Wrath of Khan. They were hiding in what was it, a brown dwarf being sucked into the event horizon of a supermassive black hole. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, that is brilliant. It was good. It was a very ambitious episode.
It was. It doesn't get a lot more dramatic either. And given that they centered the villain of this piece around the dodgy monster from that episode of Star Trek that one time, it's really, really impressive. That I think it's such a bold and brave decision to position them. I think it's fair to say they're going to be positioned as the main kind of running villain of this series and this particular area of the franchise. And I think that's such a brave thing to do, and to do that. But of course we didn't see them, which again I think is just a genius idea. This kind of skulking, lurking lizard creature, only described by Lahar Noonien Singh's visceral and at times possibly over dramatic descriptions of them.
She does not like them. I'm guessing from her general demeanor, she's not a fan of the Gorn, is she?
I don't think so. No. I mean, she's seen that episode. She thought it was crap, and she just isn't over it. And I understand that. It's.
I mean, I love the fact it's like you can tell, like, is it Kurzman? Who is it? Kurzman, Goldsman, and Lumet. You can tell that they are Star Trek fans. They will have sat in a room and going, "What can we do?" And it's like, the Gorn are pretty legendary. Like, we've seen that fight with Shatner like 4 million times. We should turn those into the villains, like, regardless of how much comic relief they brought to the world in the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah. 100%.
But it's fantastic to see that they've gone that way with it.
In terms of the screenplay as well, there's no fat on this thing. It's so intense and it's so tight in the way it tells the story. Everything does exactly what it needs to do at each time. You've got 3 distinct narratives going on here. There's the stuff going on the bridge, the stuff going on in sick bay, and the stuff going on in the hold, in the cargo bay. And each one of them works so beautifully in its own way. All of the characters feel really well represented. It all makes sense in terms of the world and what they're doing and who they are. They've all got things they need to prove, things they need to not prove, things that, this may well turn into my favorite episode of Star Trek ever, I think. And that is a bold
That's
statement,
very bold.
But I just think it's it felt more like a mini film than it did than an episode of TV. I think this felt like kind of the third. If you had another sort of hour on the beginning of this thing, introducing the Gorn as your bad guys and doing some detective work and things like that, and maybe this is the last sort of 50 minutes of your feature film, and I think it works so well. for all of those reasons, and predominantly, I think it works so well because because of the way they position that enemy in the Gorn and the that kind of hidden
Mm.
that hidden enemy is just man,
Yeah.
I just loved it. I loved it. It's very difficult for me to be objective about this because I just loved it so much.
I mean, it was a very, very well, like you say, there was no fat on it. It was very, very well written. Um, it was an action script. It was a smart action
Yep.
script, but this was an action episode. There was
Mm.
no diplomacy, or it was just, okay, this is going to be cat and mouse. It's going to seem like they're fine, and then they're massively outgunned. And then what the hell is that ship? What is the big one?
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
can't even
What is going
understand
on?
what shape it is from looking at it. Normally I go, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I understand what that is, but looking at it, I'm like, what is it? Like, what is it? It looks
Yeah.
like someone spilt blancmange in 3D. Like, it's everywhere.
It does. It does look like someone's spilt blancmange in 3D. What a weird
That
description.
must
but I love it.
be what they did. What they did. Maybe they spilt blancmange in the writers' room. They were like, "We've got it. We've got this. We know what the Gorn are going to
The
fly."
Gorn down. We understand now.
They must have blancmange
Yeah,
in American writers' rooms. Surely. I mean, it's a thing,
surely.
right?
I think it's all they eat. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure they power American writers on blancmange. I think that's all it is. But yeah, it's a great bit of science fiction as well. Like the so it owes it. I want to make that comparison to the Wrath of Khan because I think it's really important. This script owes a lot to the Wrath of Khan. The way the exteriors are shot, the way, but also I think the fact that they are hesitant about going in for those great science fiction beauty shots of the Enterprise and things like that. It would be very, very easy to do that, but I think and they do go there a few times. There's that great shot of the Enterprise repositioning itself above the Gorn ship, and it's so beautiful, and it really does look great. But they could have done a lot more, and I think the restraint on that really makes this feel claustrophobic, and really makes it feel as though you understand that we're on a ship that could at any time implode, and it owes a lot to the Wrath of Khan, which in turn owes a lot to those great old war submarine movies.
Totally.
And even the fact that they make the contrived point that it's it's hot in here, so we're all sweating suddenly because of the brown dwarf and everything. You just want them to look sweaty because it ups the tension. But it's there and it works, and I think it owes a lot there. You see the references really, really clear, and I think it's a really well made on that point, on what it borrows from the Wrath of Khan there.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I mean, there is so many so many similarities. There's obviously the chase itself. There's the ticking clock in engineering, where there's going to be. I know these characters are relatively new to us, but you don't want one of the main guys to die. I think we've got enough. We've got enough experience with them to be like, oh no, I'm used to this person now. I definitely don't want them to die. There's a ticking clock with, of course. I mean, Uhura is more than a new character. We've known her for decades and decades, so we are worried. People are going to die in engineering. There is a heritage of hatred for the villain from Noonien Singh. I mean, she hates them, and you can see that there's this past which is really, really affecting her. I thought it was great, and then Spock, the way he is in it, he's matter of fact. We have now lost one crew person, and it's he wasn't being cold. He was just being factual.
Yeah, because there's no time for that emotion here in this episode. There is no time for them to grieve, and they take the time at the end. I think the captain goes to the coffins and like that they've done again, echoing many episodes before. But there's a moment when Spock turns to Pike and says, "You made the logical decision," and Pike says, "But why doesn't it feel like that?" And Spock, brilliant! It's such a great line. For the same reason that you made the decision, because you value life. And I think it's so good. It's perhaps not the most elegant line ever written, but it's very effective in in the way Peck delivers it, and in the way that it kind of it grounds the episode again, and it gives it that humanity, which is so often lost in these very action heavy episodes. You can you feel the loss of each and every crew member in a way that you don't necessarily in something like Star Wars, for example. They're different genres, but to the and I'll talk on that point in a minute. Actually, I have something interesting there. But like you find, you know, space battles going on. You've got a space battle going on. You don't care necessarily when your X-wing buddy gets blown up because you don't know the X-wing buddy. We don't know the guy who was diving through the underbelly of the ship and pushed our mate to through the door. We don't know him, but we feel it because you feel it through Pike.
Yeah.
And that's a performance and great writing there, I think, that is so effective in this.
I think they've moved on from the red shirt era, haven't they? Which was massively parodied on many things. Well, I think it was on Family Guy did it so well, where it was always the guy was always called Ensign Ricky, and it was like, okay, we're going down to the surface. Spock, Bones, Uhura, Ensign Ricky, and he'd be like, oh crap, because the guy you don't know in the red shirt always dies. But they have
always
definitely moved on from that. They did a similar thing in Discovery. They really made a thing about losing a crew member and how it feels, and it would feel like that. They're not military. Military people will feel it, of course they will, because they're their compatriots, they're their friends. They fought alongside these people, but then this is a science vessel. So for people to be dying on this, it's kind of like you'd expect them to be very, very affected by it. And I think the way that it is being reflected through Pike is a smart move, because his whole arc now is sacrificing himself for those 6 crew members in 10 years' time. So every crew member he loses now is going to have such a weight. And I think it's a really clever mechanic. Like it's quite complex, but in a very simple way. So it's emotionally complex, but it's very like, oh look, he's going to die, so they don't die. But now this guy's died, so he's really upset, and it works really, really well.
It works so well, and I think that you mentioned Discovery there, and you're right in the sense that they do this in Discovery, and they make a big fuss about a single crew person and everything. But I don't always buy it with Discovery. I don't always believe that they really do care in the way that the script tells us that they care, the actors and the performance tell us that they care, but I don't believe the characters deep down really, it feels, for me it feels quite surface level. But I think that's a problem with Discovery series 3 and 4 anyway. It's we mentioned it before, the saccharine sort of sickly sweetness of it that wasn't there in series 2, and I think a lot of I think this feels more grounded, more believable, if you can be grounded in something like Star Trek. But it feels more grounded, it feels more believable, and I think a lot of it comes down to those characters. I think that and that there's a lovely callback in this episode that Spock has when he's mind melded with Lahar. When you hear his sister, you hear Michael Burnham, and that little exchange they have at the end of Discovery Series 2, and you're reminded of Spock's humanity in that moment and everything. And again, I just think there's more humanity in this show than there is in Discovery. I don't, maybe that's just me. We're early days yet. There's a lot more Discovery than there is of this. Perhaps that's my hang up there. Am I right, or am I just
I think it's
projecting?
I don't think you're projecting, but there is the episodic versus not non-episodic sort of nature to it. So the fact that the main thing carrying us through a Strange New Worlds is the relationship of the crew. It's not another thread of a storyline. It's not the orb. What was it? The AI orb thing in Discovery, or the Klingon War, or any of that. It's the only thing that really remain. I mean, obviously they'll talk about things that happen in other episodes, but really it's a reset, and the only thing that's the same is the emotional arc of the crew. So I understand from a writing point of view why it feels more, because the anchor for us is their relationships. But yeah, I think there is more of a old fashioned. When I say old fashioned, I mean the original series view and tone on space exploration, and
Mm,
the evolution of, like, I guess it's like the human psyche or ethical.
mm,
There's a lot of looking at ourselves and how we could be and how we are now, particularly in that first episode where it showed the World War III, using footage from now. It's like, oh wow, okay, I see what you're saying. So yeah, I think there's an interesting thing they've done with the tone of things here. Yeah.
mm. That's a much more eloquent way of putting it than I did. So thank you for thank you for that. Um, I think I really enjoy the science fiction element of this here today in this particular episode, and this is what I was referring to when I mentioned Star Wars a minute ago, because there's Star Wars. I've had this conversation with friends before, and they've said, "Oh, science fiction, like Star Wars, like Star Trek," and I go, "It's not science fiction. Star Wars is not science fiction. It's fantasy." And they kind of go, "Oh, what are you talking about? Space battles? It's definitely science fiction." But it's not. And I think this episode of Star Trek actually illustrates this really well, because science fiction is born of using fictional science, to solve problems. And this here, they do this in such an interesting way. They use that idea in such an interesting way, um, with Spock creating his sonar,
Hmm.
his sort of his and all of these things are contrived to get to this submarine feel and to get to this place. But I don't mind that. I like the fact that they do that. I like that, that's where they head, because I think it works so well. And it all makes sense in world. The rules are followed. It makes a deal of sense here. um and I think that, and I think it's a really interesting. I just think it's really well done. I think that particular moment is really well done. I think the science in the science fiction is followed really, really rather brilliantly here. So I will point to this episode in the future when I'm having those 2 in the morning pub conversations with people and trying to explain why Star Wars is not science fiction.
I, I, I,
But I digress.
I've, I will always say Star Wars is science fiction, but I know exactly what you're saying about. It's almost like it's futuristic fantasy or
Mm,
distant fantasy. It is a very, very different kettle of fish, and some
yeah,
people who've never seen either. There can't be many left now, but classically, people who've never seen either just put them all in the same, you know, put them all in the same barrel and go, oh yeah, they're all the same kind of thing
space,
with the
isn't it? Yeah,
spaceships and
space.
there's some funny ears in that one. Like they've all got funny ears.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So it's
yeah.
I think the
And I can understand that.
the science in Star Trek, particularly in this episode, was
Mm,
yeah, it was great. The way they were talking about redshift and the amount of pressure that is taken in the drift of the brown dwarf being sucked into the enormous black hole. And it was like, oh wow, like this is they're trying to stick to their the scientific roots of this thing. I mean, there are, I think there's a number of science consultants on Star Trek. I can't remember the
yeah.
main one. I listened to a podcast with them the other week, and they're constantly asked if it's is this would this be possible? Would this be like near? And they're like, well, it doesn't exist, but yeah, yeah, that could happen. If that did that, then this would be the scientific um, effect. And they try and keep it rooted in reality, which is a wonderful thing for such a fantastical TV show. I
Yeah.
think it grounds
And
it.
I think that's the difference, and that for me is why these two genres are so different, and why Star Wars will forever be fantasy, because the Force doesn't make any sense in Star Trek. It doesn't work. It
Yeah,
just doesn't. It doesn't feel like something you could have, or if it is something that you could have, then you might. It would be an episode where Picard struggles with his principles to understand how this could be a thing, and is ultimately explained away as by science. It can't exist as just the Force, because it just doesn't. Because it just can't. It doesn't make sense within the rules. In the same way, Star Star Trek's kind of you know. Well, if we reboot the ISO converters and put that into the blah 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 da, 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 the techno babble of Star Trek
yeah,
doesn't really fit into Star Wars. in the same way. You know, that you're never. There are bits where you have Han Solo fixing up the Millennium Falcon, but it's fixing it up. It's bang, bang, bang. We're
Mm.
good. It's not. Whereas with the Enterprise, they're tinkering and doing this, and there are whole episodes around just getting a little bit more efficiency out of the warp core, Mister. You know, whereas it just doesn't work in that. So that's anyway. I digress there, but I think this was just a really great example of well written science fiction.
Yeah, I
Today.
think that having that realism is like it. You can sort of see it in some of the bigger shows. So I watched a Shonda Rhimes interview, and they're trying to keep things real within this drama in Grey's Anatomy, right? So
Mhm.
they have so many surgical scenes and so many, and it's all they have to have it all accurate. But the writers in the
Sure.
room don't know this how
No,
it
no.
works, so they will write down the term medical in the script. So
Nice.
it'll be
Right.
like, oh yeah, we need to medical with blah 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 and medical, and it's like, and then they go to the professionals and go, so we're doing a surgery, it's around the heart, blah blah blah, and they go, okay, this is what you need to fill in here, and I have no idea how they write this. I haven't seen any interviews with the writers yet, but
Sure.
I would expect the drama comes first and the science comes second, and then they have to
Hmm.
try and get it in there. But it is
Yeah.
still sort of at the core of what we're seeing here, I think.
I think you're right. It feels like they lean on it, and it is part of the heritage of this show. In a big way. And I think one of the things about this episode is that it relies very confidently on the fact that you understand what Starfleet is. You understand what Star Trek as an idea is. And I think that because it doesn't bother with explaining what anything means. You know, the early bits of this episode, you have them um you have Pike is standing there, he's giving orders really, really fast. And as a fan of it, I know, immediately, oh, okay, that's because of this, and this, and we're confidently placed there. I wonder if it would be a little bit less easy to follow if you were a more casual viewer. Um, Possibly doesn't matter so much because ultimately the drama is so well written that it carries you through anyway.
Mm.
But I think that there's a lot there that works really confidently, and it sits really confidently within the Star Trek mold. I think in that sense, which is again commendable. You know, it's just a great episode. I just really like this one. However, it ain't perfect, Brad, and I wonder because for me, I was looking at the watching the whole business with the mind meld, with Lahan and Spock. Um, I don't know. I'm nitpicking because I think the whole thing does work really really well, but I think it does stall the the flow of the episode a little bit, and I think you kind of it's like it's like you're at a wedding and you're having a really really great time and everyone's up and everyone's dancing and everyone's chatting, and then it's like, okay, we'll go to separate rooms and separate corners and we're going to sit down, we're going to eat something, and then you're going to listen to people speak for 5 hours, and then we expect you to get back up again and
Yeah.
continue doing everything you were doing before. It just kind of it stopped it a bit for me, I think, and that was very very high intensity, and then we take a walk down memory lane for a bit.
Yeah.
I
I,
I
I,
I, I don't know. I don't know.
yeah, I know what you're saying. I think the I think it was a little bit lengthy. I guess it was almost like a back to tank scene, I guess, somehow.
It kind of was, yeah. Kind
Like
of was.
I liked the fact that they were interacting in the environment with the reality of it. They were there having a
Mhm.
conversation about it. But I don't. It didn't seem entirely necessary. I mean, they did it, and
No.
what did they get out of it? They found out that they communicate with light. What was that? What was happening? But they could
Yeah,
just
that
see
was
that.
exactly what
They
it
could just
was.
see that anyway, right? Could they
Yeah.
just not
There
figured
was a
that out?
big time contrivance there where Spock's like, why are they scanning each other? It's like they're clearly, even I know they're not scanning each other, Spock. I'm looking at, they're clearly Morse coding at each other.
Yeah.
You
And then
know, it's it,
what was the science of them sending the message to the other ship?
yeah.
Isn't it a visual thing? Because they're shy. I don't know. Like it was like they just typed something in somewhere and went, "Oh, I just pretended I was them," and blah 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 blah. And it's like, what? How did you do that? Like,
That message has come from a Starfleet shuttle.
yeah,
Oh well.
let's blow them up. But yeah, there
Yeah,
was
it's
that. There was the contrivance is a good way
hmm,
of doing it. It was, I would say, if you're nitpicking, yeah, that would be a
yeah.
scene that would have, I don't know, it felt a bit flat somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there could have been other ways of. If you want to do the visual communication, I have no particular issue with that. But I think that given that it was quite clearly a visual language from the word go, I just don't buy. It falls apart for me the moment Spock is wondering what it is, because it's quite clear. And then when they actually get that when her brother in the memory gives her the book and shows her what he's found out, it is actually dots and dashes as well. I'd hope for something perhaps a little bit more uh, thought out than that,
Yeah.
than just dots and dashes, for the Gorn.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it was a little bit of a device for some exposition about um, Lan's past, because that's coming into play. You know, they're not going to have a Noonien singing this for no reason, are they? She could have been anyone, but no, she's an ancestor of Khan. So they are building something here. I don't think we can really see what it is yet, but they are something's happening, and these are the building blocks. So these are the things that we will be keeping, as writers especially, keeping an eye on over the next few weeks as it comes out, to see what they're doing with these pieces and what they're pointing at.
For sure. And I think I was glad, having said that I thought it was the weaker part of the episode, I was glad to see her given a bit of time to explore that as well, just on that kind of surface level, because man, I found that character irritating in the first three episodes. And I'm pleased that it's nice to see her be called on it a little bit, and to see her kind of go, to see Pike go, no, 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 you can't. Because I found it really irritating the way she's like, well, I don't really care what the crew think, and you kind of go, yeah, that's not how this works, though, is it? You can't do that. And then Pike immediately goes, yeah, that's not how this works,
Yeah,
though, and it's quite nice to see the other characters in the scene acknowledge the fact that you kind of have an annoying attitude, and you, if not annoying, you have an attitude because there's good reason for her to be the way she is, and I understand that. But there's it's nice to see them acknowledge that, and to see them growing something out of it, and see her growing as a character potentially as well.
yeah. I think there's a lot more to find in the relationship between her and number one as well, because we've only just touched on it a little bit, and it's like, oh yeah, she saved me, and then she got me into Starfleet, or there was all these bits of backstory that we haven't fully explored yet. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's more to come from those two. But she seems to be quite locked into a few of the main characters, which is quite interesting. And I wonder what strings they're pulling there. What's going to happen?
I know. I wondered the same thing, because it's she seems to be weaving her way through, doesn't she? Which is quite good. Number one as well, the sequence with her in sick bay and Doctor Mbenga. I adored all of that. It's such great character stuff going on there from everyone as well, from Chapel, from Una, from Mbenga, from there's a lot of just really lovely character stuff happening down there. And the giving up of the plasma, the fact that Mbenga gives her his blood, and that lovely moment as well. That it's such a writer's moment, that she moves over, it tugs slightly on him, he looks down, feels it, and then looks at her. It's such a writer's moment, and I loved it for that, because it's the acknowledgement between the two of them. She's like, you're a good guy, and he's like, I'll do this again for
He's
you
like,
if you need me to, 'cause I'm a good guy.
I need a biscuit.
Yeah,
I'm feeling a bit
yeah, yeah,
lightheaded right now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I have continued working when I really shouldn't have done. Like, I am tired. I actually have far less blood than you do now. But yeah, it's really good stuff, all of that there, and for the second time she's been in jeopardy, I think in real jeopardy, so far. I wonder, in the same way that they're building something with Union Sing, I wonder if they are laying some groundwork there. I wonder if number one may not necessarily survive for the whole
Maybe.
whole run of the show.
Maybe, I don't know. They're definitely doing something unusual with her, and they're again building in something else because she's rarely been sitting there in the bridge. Like she's number one, she's supposed to be there, but she hasn't. They're doing something quite different with her, and they're treating her character in a different way. This isn't Chakotay, this isn't Riker. Like they're doing it different, and we don't know why yet. But we'll maybe you're right. Maybe she'll be dead by the end of next episode. We don't know. I'd be surprised if they killed off before the end of the season. But we'll see
Yeah, sure.
what they're doing. There's
I-
something happening. We can see it. We can see what you're
we
doing.
can see it. We've got it. It's right there. We know what's going on. Yeah, no, I agree. It's there's definitely something they're building there. But I guess there's a bunch of these characters though. Like Pike. We know what happens to him, but there are a load of these characters that are legacy. Obviously Uhura. We know what happens to her. But there are a bunch of these legacy characters that come from that original number one, for example, and a few of the new people. We don't know what happens to them necessarily. We don't know where they go. Why, for example, is number one not still on the bridge of the Enterprise during Kirk's time? What happens there? Why is I think Chapel and Mbenga turn up, I think, if I remember rightly, because they're both legacy characters. But I don't know. It's fertile ground, Brad. It's fertile ground, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, I think you're right. There are. It's nice having that mystery hanging over it. It's like, well, what happens to these guys in this episode, particularly because it's like Wrath of Khan. I was looking at the relationship between Pike and Spock. I was like, oh yeah, this is super cool. Look at these guys, like riffing, trying to figure their way out of this. And then I was like, hang on a minute, I feel like I've betrayed William Shatner a bit here.
I know.
Like
yeah.
after this whole thing, Spock does the same job with another guy. And it's like his best friend. He becomes his best friend, and it's like all of the stories that we saw from the original series, that either the TV show or the films or the crossovers or the games, whatever it was, like there was so much of it. There's such a journey with all these characters, and this is before. There's 2 or 3 of them like knocking about before it even started, and I keep reminding myself of that because it's a peculiar feeling in a way. I feel like I'm cheating on Shatner.
No, it does feel a bit like cheating on Shatner, doesn't it? And I think that yeah, it does. It does feel a bit like that, but I think it does add a lot of weight to the original series episode where Spock goes and takes Pike back to wherever the planet is. I can't remember the name of the planet now. Talos 3. When he takes him back to Talos 3, it adds a lot of weight to that, and because that episode feels a bit sort of a little flat in places. It's a great episode, but the performances you've got Leonard Nimoy doing his best to act whilst not giving any emotion, not a particularly useful place to go. And then you've got not Jeffrey Hunter, or not original Pike. Anyway, I think it was Jeffrey Hunter, but I can't remember. But not the original Pike under huge prosthetic, unable to move. And so you have these two. It's not the most compelling thing, but then now we've seen them interact in a meaningful, friendly, bantery kind of way. I think that it retroactively improves that. And I think you can read between the lines a little bit. You can remember how they were and kind of see that.
Yeah, I think so. Before it was a bit like, come on, we're going to this planet. Come on, come with me. And now it's like, oh my God, they had years of history together and they were friends. And I like how shows are not retconning things, but they are giving different weight to other franchises, other parts of the franchise even. I like that.
It is lovely, and I think they're doing so far. Strange New Worlds is doing very well by me. It's doing very well. Yeah. I think you agree. Are you with me on that?
Totally, and I'm like furiously trying to avoid any spoilers because they're quite a way ahead in the States. As soon as I
They
see
are.
something that looks like an American banner or any, I'm like, no, close,
Yeah.
close, close. I don't want to see. I don't want to see. So it's quite hard.
Yeah.
It's quite
I
hard.
I don't know how many episodes there are of this coming out, but I think they're on episode 10 in the States now, and I've got a
Oh my
horrible
God.
feeling that's going to be the last episode. And if that's the last one, then that's like, finale.
Oh God.
Stop.
I've still got 2 hours of Stranger Things to watch, and it's so it's
I know.
people have
Me
watched this
too.
a lot now. I'm like, I can't go online until I finish this. I just can't.
Yeah, I know. The clickbait is everywhere,
Yeah.
isn't it? Did you know that scene in this thing? Oh no! Please stop! I haven't got time.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice one. I mean, we are when we get to the end of this as well. I had a great conversation the other day. If you haven't seen it yet, it's out now. Really interesting conversation with an author called Una McCormack, who has written some really great Star Trek tie-in stuff, including things to do with Deep Space Nine. But more recently, she wrote Star Trek Picard: Last Best Hope, which was a book that kind of sits just before Star Trek Picard season 1, and really, I think personally, having read it very recently, absolutely elevates that show. And I had a really great conversation with her about kind of writing and adaptation and things like that. So if you like your Star Trek stuff, go check out that video. It's a pretty good one, I think. And I'm hoping that when we get to the end of Strange New Worlds, that she might like to come back and have a chat with you and I, Brad, about what she thought of Strange New Worlds.
That'd be awesome.
I think it'll be a fun chat. Yeah, I think it'll be a fun chat. Any final thoughts?
No, I'm again, as I said on Ep 3, I'm really looking forward to where they go next. I would be surprised if it's another, all-out action cat and mouse style thing, but I'm excited. I'm excited again about Star Trek. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I heard that. We all heard that, Brad. We all heard that Freudian slip.
You were talking about it so much this episode. Come on.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's very exciting. So yeah, we'll more that, please. Please give let's give the old Enterprise a rest next week and maybe beat up Pike instead. Who knows? But we'll see what happens. Thank you, Brad. Another great conversation. And until next time, guys, live long and prosper. Bye-bye.